I have gotten a number of emails and questions and comments, and so I want to do some clarification. I kind of thought about it at the town hall meeting, but it went on so late, I just didn't think the time was appropriate. So I thought it might be okay to do it now, because I'll make these clarifications, and we're not voting on this tonight. We're not voting on it next week, so I feel like it's not in the heat of the moment of thinking about it. So I have really 3 points, but I want to lead off by saying that some people have talked about waiting for my successor, and I do want you to keep in mind that when my successor comes and we talk about 5-6, and someone says, "Hey, what do you think about 5-6 at Bradford Heights?" He's going to say, "Where's Bradford Heights?" So I think that that could be a long wait until he really gets his head around the whole district. But what I do think he will be awesome at is putting in if we go 5-6, a 5-6 elementary program. If we go full day K, putting in an also full day K program. And so I think he will be all about that. In my case, I'm the third superintendent to believe that 5-6 was the best way to go. And if I'm a betting gal, I'm going to say he's going to be the fourth, but time will tell. But I feel like it's a big long wait if you want him to get his head around the whole thing. And I'm not sure with the number of kids we have coming that we have that kind of time to make any decision. So I just want you to think about that. But here's really my 3 points, and they stem from questions. The first one is about our facilities. And a number of people stood up and talked about our facilities being neglected. And I was highly offended by that. And I want to give a shout out to our facilities department, because everything we do, we're on a cycle. And we're all 16 buildings plus this building, which is 17, we're replacing roofs, we're upgrading HVAC, we're replacing boilers, we're replacing carpeting, we're on a cycle to even replace furniture. So it isn't the case when, like, I recall one person standing up and saying, well, our middle schools haven't had work. That simply is not the case. We're on the cycle, and we're continuing to upgrade schools, and we'll always do that. And I want to give a shout out to the board in the same vein, because people don't realize this perhaps if they don't come to our meetings, but the board gives the administrators $10 million a year. This year, $12 million. The large majority of that is on our capital improvement. So we continually upgrade our schools, and frankly, they're all in very good shape. Our oldest school, our 1932 STEM Academy, looks pretty darn good. And again, it has great bones, and we continue to upgrade that in many ways. So, Mr. Lawver, to you and your staff, I think you do great work, and I don't think that's a fair assessment. I'll give you one other example of that. Just happened to look up Beaver Creek, and people were saying, well, Beaver Creek hasn't had any attention. In the last 5 years, Beaver Creek had about $1 million spent in upgrades, and they're on the docket in the next 4 years to have another $1 million. So again, even no matter what school you bring up, that kind of money is being spent in our schools. So I just want to clarify that point. The second thing I want to mention is people have asked about this survey, like, can we keep the survey open, or can we do more? It was never really a survey. So what happened was, it was a document for people to give us comments about the town hall. And we wanted to keep it open through the town hall, because we thought if there weren't a lot of people there, we could maybe just read out loud the comments or questions. Turned out there were a lot of people there. We went late into the night. But anyway, people also asked us, could we put those comments out on our website? And we didn't ask people ahead of time if they would allow us to do that, or told them that we were going to do it. So we didn't feel comfortable doing that. So we summarized and put pie charts and such out just to say kind of what people did. But it wasn't really a survey. It was to give us comments on the 3 options. People have asked me repeatedly, well, the option 2 now is kind of different, because the number that you put on the website is not the same number that we discussed at the meeting. That's another reason why we can't do that now. The numbers are different. What happened at the meeting, if you recall, at the town hall, Carl Croft got up and pretty much single-handedly said he can change the rules to allow us to add on to Brandywine Wallace. Well, that's a game changer. We don't need to build over there if that's the case. So if that in fact is true, then I think we need to look at that if we're interested in option 2. Option 2, we did not price out. So we can't put a survey out there and say, hey, what do you think about something, but we don't have any cost. So if you follow me, it just because we changed what we were doing, that's not really a possibility. Should we put a survey out at some point? We definitely should. But we don't have that information on what is, and maybe what we actually call option 4, because it really means that we're not building, rather we're adding on to Lionville, both Bradfords, Brandywine Wallace, and Beaver Creek. So we were adding on to 5 of our schools if we do that. We would have to approve our architects to do a study and figure that out. So we don't have those numbers. So I just want to throw that out there and say that would be, that's why there's not a survey out there now. We're not really prepared to do that if we go down that particular line of thinking. I also want to mention one other thing. If we were to do these add-on and make these like mega elementary schools, it would happen at very different times. It would be a miracle for them to be finished at the same time because we have so many different municipalities. But that's not really what I want to say. What I want to say is, in the short term, that's a long-term solution, but in the short term, we're going to have some schools that are overcrowded and we're going to have to move kids out. Then we're going to build and we're going to move kids back. That's not going to be a positive thing for parents. So I want you to think about that. But more to the point, something that wasn't brought up at all is that the schools that we're not talking about, we're going to have to move kids. Because let's just fast forward, once we build those big schools, Springton Manor is over 600 kids now. So they're not going to be able to support all-day K unless we move some of those kiddos out eventually. Shimona Creek was over 600 kids, dipped down some during the pandemic, working its way back up. If we can't send any more kids to Beaver Creek, so any new developments that come up are going to have to go to one of the other schools. So again, Shimona Creek, we're going to end up moving kids out of there. Euclid Hills, we only put one new development. It's the one over near Shanahan. That's going to Euclid, if you recall. We did that when it first opened. They're getting a student or two a week. So 3-4 years from now, Euclid Hills, to get all-day K, we're going to have to move kids out of there. So I think that's going to be true in all of those schools. East Ward is the same. East Ward is going to have to absorb some Beaver Creek kids eventually. They're not going to be able to do all-day K. So the only school that I think might be able to do that is Pickering. But these big mega elementaries, just think about that, because as we fast forward, and maybe it might be a whole different board, but it's going to be messy. That's going to be very messy because there's going to be a significant amount of redistricting. So I just want us to think about that and not go like, hey, let's build on. That's a great idea if I'm at a school where we're building on and my kid doesn't have to move. But that's not going to be true for many schools. So that was not pointed out, and I wanted to point it out here. And the final thing I'll say is about 5-6. And, everybody knows that I'm a proponent of 5-6. Someone stood up and said it's a short-term solution, and none of these are short-term solutions. The only short-term is if we have to redistrict kids now. It is a long-term solution. If we do this, and we heard the Bradford Heights people, certainly I did, I think we all did, we heard them loud and clear, not in my backyard. And honestly, that's also true when we built Marsh Creek. When we tried to build it at River Station, we met the neighbors. If we build in McCausland, we're going to meet the neighbors. Like that, I get that, and we hear you loud and clear. We need some 5-6 on that end of the district. And so I think that that's going to be, in the end, we have to work with the township. They've been very amenable. They preferred us to use ground that we already had as opposed to new green space, but we can certainly talk that through with them. But the 5-6 would be a long-term solution. I believe it's going to be less expensive in the end, because I think if we do option 2, we're going to need car loops and bus loops and sprinklers, and there'll be impervious issues. It's going to be bigger than we think. This one checks all the boxes. It will be efficient to do. We'll get done sooner. I believe it'll be least expensive. I can't prove that now, but I think it will be the most educationally sound. When you look at any research, it's all over the place about whether K4 is best, K5, K6, K7, some say K8, and that's because there's so many confounding variables. What you don't see is take all the kids and put them somewhere for a year and then move them out again. There's no research that suggests that's the most educationally sound. And I know when we did it, it was a financial decision and all of that, but this board has a chance to get it right. And so I feel as though your legacy should be that when years go by, and you can people look back and say, the board that did that got it right. It checked all the boxes. We have 2 5-6s. We will not have to build again in this district for the next 30 or 40 years. It will be finished. It will immediately either give us 5 or 6 classes in every elementary. So no redistricting, just room. I also think it will be the most efficient use of our personnel. So I want to say that out loud. I'm not the first person to say it. I think you're soon going to have another leader who says that it's the obvious long-term choice to get us where we want to be. Not going to vote on it now. I was hoping not to saddle the new superintendent with a decision like that, but rather just cut him loose and let him give us a terrific program. That's not going to happen, and that's okay. But I feel like that investigation with the 5-6 in the southern, preferably the southern western end of our district, would be the prime spot. And I didn't even mention the transportation, but that's a bit of a driver as well. So I'm going to stop there, but I've gotten a lot of questions about those things, and I think as time goes on, we can put surveys out and we can do more of that to